to Don't Get Me Started. I know it's kind of dark in here. We look like we're in a wine cellar with the wall behind us, but no, we're not in hiding because we're proud, aren't we, bro? We're proud of what we got to say. And I'm also proud to also, invite Paul Gunson here as a co-host on Don't Get Me Started, even though he's ready to start his own other show and leave me behind. But that's all good, because while we got him, we got him. I'm Chase the Hijacker, and this is Paul Gunson.
How are you doing? Good to be with you again. Nice to be back, Chase. Thanks for letting me come.
Well, hey man, how can I have this show going on about conspiracies when I don't have the man with the knowledge to join me on this? And I promise not to mention flat Earth.
Well, that'll make a change.
I thought you were going to say what you just did. Because last time we were talking about how time is one of those funny animals, because we were just recently listening to Kanye talking to our very own President Trump about how time is a construct, and it made me think, time is kind of strange, and how it comes about, because as I often say, the flat Earth theory really is just about going against the government or the church way of controlling our mindset. So, like when we last talked, we talked about the Gregorian Calendar. I had to go away and do some research.
Yeah, and I kind of did myself, because I hadn't really spent a lot of time on the Gregorian Calendar, because I'm more into the archaeological evidence of a timeline, for want of a word. And it seems my conclusion over the recent couple of months of researching is that our calendar has largely been adopted by the way of enabling churches, governments to control how people think, what people do, how they react. And what I researched was the archaeological evidence of time in association with calendar. And there's clear evidence that the history of the world is hundreds and millions of years old.
Millions, yeah.
It's not 6,000 years necessarily as the Christian Bible would want us to believe, but the Christian Bible does fit within a time slot within the history of the world, and I accept that. But I want to, through my new show, which we're going to be calling The Arc, A-R-C, is related to understanding that there's a lot of evidence out there that we need to really just open our minds up to and stop being constrained by this time bubble
or disinformation of the government.
Yeah.
Because also too, again, with your shameless plug on the Arc, is the fact that change has come throughout history.
Absolutely.
And so, as you pointed out to me earlier, it's like 2012 was a period of change.
Yes.
And so you wanted to say a little bit about that.
Yeah, as an avid sort of historical gatherer of information, I was very much into ancient civilizations around the Anunnaki, which is the Mesopotamian side, and then also the Incan side, which is the, sort of looking at it from an Incan civilization, the Mayan calendar. And the Mayan calendar clearly predicted the year 2012 as a end world time. And when 2012 came along, people said, "Oh, obviously that was all a load of
kind of like Y2K, in 2000. Oh, when we hit 2000, all the numbers go back to zero."
But what was key to that is when I looked at that and I thought, well, hold on, did anything actually significantly change in 2012? And being a conspiracy theorist and also being somebody who looks at ancient history, I absolutely do believe something did. And it's technology. Up until sort of 2009, we were kind of in with the internet, and it was all about the .com era and things like that.
But that was a crash.
And that crashed, and I'm a great believer that there are periods of time, and history has proven this, is that every sort of 30, 40 years we have a change in currency, every 7 to 10 years we have a crash in the economy, and all of these time slots can be clearly backdated for as long back in millennia as you want to go. So when I looked at the 2012 Mayan calendar, and then I looked at the world history of technology, what happened, well, guess what, guys? Something did happen, and something very significantly happened, and it's called blockchain technology.
Blockchain. I've heard this blockchain. Yes.
Well, it came about through cryptocurrency, which is my other sort of hobby horse, which we can talk about at any point in our shows. But it was not necessarily the Bitcoin era, it was the start of something, and it's been around for 10 years now. But as with any technology, it takes time to establish and it takes time to run its course. So I think we're into 10 years into something that's going to be here for the next, I believe, next 60 to 100 years. So the currency issue is another topic, another discussion. But the blockchain technology is now becoming a massive disruption to what we now see technology. What do I mean by that? Well, blockchain is going to certainly change the banking industry, which is not a bad thing.
Not bad at all.
It's also going to impact on governments, because a lot of the government functions are going to be done away with, because, for instance, elections, elections can now be put onto a blockchain. So there's no manipulation of results.
Yeah, don't get me started on that, man. I'm telling you.
So, by everybody being able to go online and register a vote on the blockchain, it can't be corrupted, it can't be changed.
That's right, you can't have to worry about lineups outside the polls, you don't have to worry about buses not making it to where they're supposed to get to, and all that other kind of stuff.
And more importantly, every person has the right to vote in a free society where, they're not going to be governed by a polling station and a box that can be
Wouldn't it
easily
be fantastic if all of a sudden you just had an app and you go left, right,
Well, guess what, Chase? They already exist.
What?
There are governments that use app technology to do voting.
Don't get me started on that, man. Because if the government created it, I don't trust it.
Not necessarily governments, but the technology.
Yeah. So you're just saying they are coming into that awareness that if you want everyone to have a chance of voting, especially like expats like myself, that we should be able to just be able to vote online.
Absolutely. And that technology.
Vote online.
And that technology has been around for a number of years. But what is significant about the blockchain is that it can't be manipulated. It can't be taken away. Anybody in any country, in anywhere that's got access to a node or a computer or a laptop or whatever, a phone, smartphone, you can go on the blockchain and you can see every recording of every vote, of every outcome, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I believe the Mayan calendar was correct in that something was going to change the way the world was. Not necessarily the end of the world as it was going to blow up, because I don't see that as being the end of the world. I think it.
Or Nostradamus also saw that too, but
But again, going back to previous shows, we've talked about conspiracies around information, and we seem to now, and again, this is recently, and I think this is part of the 2012 as well, is that we seem to be in an age now where information is just so freely accessible. I mean, I showed my wife how the other day I asked her to give me a topic, and she said something, and I just went on my Siri and said, tell me about... And it came up, and I could have picked any one of 1,000 articles.
Yeah, Siri, Alexa, I don't, robots.
But what we've had an educational system that constrains us to a set curriculum. We've had governments and churches. I'm a religious man, and I love God and I love Jesus. Don't get me started. but I'm also very much in an open mind society. Can you imagine what a world we could create if there was no constraints on humanity, that we could free think, we could come up with ideas and have the funds and the ability to be able to just go and do that. And one of my great heroes is Nikola Tesla. We mentioned about Wi-Fi. He came up with Wi-Fi in
Henry Lamar came up with Wi-Fi. Let's debate.
Well, he came up with it in 1900. Your person was 1940s.
Okay.
So the issue here is that when the mind's allowed to be free thinking, we come up. Another one, Albert Einstein. He spoke about things that were just off the scale at the time, and now being proven. We've got. Dr. Hawkins, who recently passed away.
Yes.
All of these people, and one of the other persons I've been looking at recently is, Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh yeah, man.
If you look at a
great show called Da Vinci's Demons.
Yeah, if you look at all of the designs, he came up with the helicopter, he came up with the tank, he came up with weaponry, flying machines. He was drawing airplanes 500 years before they came about. So what you've got is free thinkers come up with answers to world problems if they're allowed to. And it's that conspiracy issue of, if the governments aren't in control, if the churches haven't got control of the people, then, they fear this ability to be free thinking. And I just want to wake people up. I just want to say, look, let's look at these things, let's look at these timelines, let's look at the evidence.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, exactly. But then also, too, when we go back to the Gregorian calendar, what I thought was interesting when we first talked about it, because you talked about the Mayan calendar and talked about Gregorian, is the fact that we are actually using the Gregorian calendar now. We just call it the calendar. And I mean, it was created in like 1562, 1582 by Pope Gregory, the 6th, I believe. And he actually changed it from the Julian calendar, obviously named after Julius Caesar. But what was interesting about the Gregorian calendar as well as the Julian is that they came up with the concept of 365 days filling out, creating the year. And then they've added the leap year, like that extra day every 4 years. Now that wasn't what was going on before, let's say like in the Mayan calendar and all that. But a lot of people look at it is that when you look at the original calendars before the one that we now consider our calendar, we would be not in 2018, but we'd be in like 5,000, 5,000 something now. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is, again, as usual, whether it's church or state, as usual, government is depicting on what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to live. And that's what I think is wrong and interesting at the same time, because when you actually take the time out to investigate, and that's what I like, the thing that this show can do, is help people to use the internet for what it should be used for, and actually going out and investigating those kind of things.
Yeah, and that's kind of where, I think, whether it's by design or by default, is what, governments and all of these different theories and all of these different issues have created, is people have become so, it's just too much. I'd sooner just sit down, watch EastEnders and Coronation Street and not even have to think. And I think that's the greatest power that
numb them out.
Yeah, just numb them out. I've spent, probably I'm talking about stuff now that I was talking about 30 years ago, and people said, you're off your head. And now time has proven that those theories were correct. So the issue is, the confusion that's been created by governments and states and churches is that they want people to think a certain way, and as long as you think within that bubble, you're going to be...
Well, I'm going to shift the conspiracy a little bit. Like I said, I'm not going to do flat earth or anything, but what I want to do is I'm going to go back to conspiracy because in recent times, probably by the time this show airs, but in recent times, we just had that incident where ex-presidents were being sent bomb packages, right? And you're saying to yourself, well, why is this happening? Obama and Clinton, they're not presidents anymore. But it's because people are so upset with the president current in power and these new midterm elections that are coming up. And what I'm just saying is that usually, if we look back at history, the conspiracy of having the gall to try and take out your fearless leader, the president of your country, it's not new, but it usually is the lone gunman conspiracy theory. Yeah. And in that aspect, it's usually kind of so when we look at these people in power that have been assassinated, it's usually been by a so-called lone gunman, because if it's proven that more than one person was involved, then there's a potential conspiracy. So, you could go back as far as Abraham Lincoln, one of our great presidents who was assassinated in, at that time, the movie theater, but a theater, by a lone gunman, an actor, John Wilkes Booth.
Absolutely. And again, that's...
Do you believe that, though? That's what I'm trying to say. Do you believe it was a lone gunman, or was it something else?
Again, this is where the conspiracy theory comes in, because I do believe that there's a wanting of being in control, and who controls. I think there are two types of control. There is military control, and there is philosophical control. So if you ask yourself, who controls the money? Well, we could arguably say the banks. Who controls the philosophy? We can say the state, the church. So whoever's in power has the ability, if you own either one or both of those, is you can pretty much dictate what goes on anyway. So going back to the Abraham Lincoln bit, the conspiracy theory behind that, I don't know whether anyone's watched the film National Treasure with Nicolas Cage.
If I can help it.
It's one of my favourite films because it talks a lot about conspiracy.
Yeah.
And the issue is there's a reason behind these assassinations, and I can point to 3 presidents. Abraham Lincoln was arguably assassinated because he wanted to do away with emancipation.
Exactly.
He wanted to totally solve the slave issue. And
exactly. And wait a minute. In doing that interrupts the corporate issue of free labor.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Big government. Yeah. That's what the whole point is. A lot of people look at it, oh my God, a beloved president murdered and killed, and all that kind of stuff. But by this evil man, John Wilkes, but they haven't actually thought about, wait a minute, what did he just do?
Well, that's it. And the other thing is he was very much along the line of he wanted to give the ability for people to become self-sufficient, to earn their own wealth, not rely on the state. And this is one of my biggest conspiracies around currency, is that again the government and banks want to control currency. I believe Abraham Lincoln at the time of his assassination was trying to maintain the Declaration of Independence, which said that if ever the people of this great nation allow the government or the banks to issue currency, first by inflation and then by deflation, they would actually create a day when our children would wake up homeless, poor and povertied. Well, guess what, guys? That happened in 1971 with President Nixon, when he took people off the gold standard, because what he gave was the government's ability then to print as much money as they wanted. And we can go back even to JFK. There's a similar story with JFK.
Well, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
They had movies about it, but there was Cuban Missile Crisis, and JFK refused, not just JFK, but his brother Robert refused to play ball.
Absolutely.
And both of them were assassinated.
Yeah. And
so we only talk about JFK's assassination, but both of them were assassinated by, again, crazy lone gunmen.
But equally, you can look back at what were they doing politically to try and change the world, which is one of my big issues, is that they were again looking at the currency, because what they did also, like Abraham Lincoln, is they went back to the Constitution of Independence, the Declaration of Independence, and they said that we don't want to allow the governments or the banks to manipulate the currency, and it was still being manipulated. He, again, JFK, was trying to allow for free trade, for allowing people to get control of their own ability to earn money, and guess what? Well, the rest was history.
So, presidents who tried to do something for the constituency paid the price for the constituency by a so-called shadow government or some people in power, or you could choose to believe what they want you to believe, that a lone gunman just decided to get past security, to get past not even manhunts, because they're always managed to catch these people.
Oh, dear.
You know what I mean? We've already managed to find them hiding in the theater. The RBI's fault. But, you know what I mean? So I just think that's a huge conspiracy. Now, we had a show, like you were in here, we had a show where we had some other guests on, and we talked about the JFK conspiracy that came out around the Zapruder film. So I'm just curious as to what you have learned or know about the Zapruder film being doctored.
Well, not really a lot to say on it, other than, again, it's who's in control and who manipulates the outcome.
Now let me help you there, Paul. Because we are now going to be showing images, during this piece. And so the Zapruder film, there's a lot of great videos on this about the Zapruder film being doctored, because when you actually look at the film, now you don't even have to look at it frame by frame. I mean, I'm an editor, right? When you look at the film, you can see that it was actually edited, right? Now, I don't know if you knew, that's why I've asked, is just that when we see movies nowadays, right, they so-called, try to implicate that people saw the assassination on television, but they did not, right? You're a man of an older generation.
Thanks.
No, I'm just saying, I am too. What happened was we heard about the assassination by American newsman Walter Cronkite, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, we heard that this incident happened in Dealey Plaza, but the video was snatched off in Zapruder and it was held somewhere for about 10 years. So the video itself wasn't released for like another like 8 to 10 years. Right? Then it became public consumption. Oh, I need to see this, you know, because it had the horrific, you know, headshot.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is it had also 8 to 10 years of technology available at the time to manipulate that film.
Well, again, there it goes again, isn't it? It's that conspiracy issue, isn't it? You know, do we always get the information at the time?
Or the Mandela effect, as they call it.
Or are we being given it in order to feed the issue?
Have you ever heard of the Mandela effect?
No. It's
really?
Yeah, no, you're catching me out today.
Oh, well, that's your homework. Mandela effect is just that, like, we remember things differently than it was actually portrayed at the time, especially when you have all of this, you know, available technology to tell us how things were. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like our perceptions have changed based upon like in what period, which is again another reason behind this show is the fact that you know we as people are easily manipulated, especially when we have the media to be able to do that for us.
Well, I can give you perhaps a modern day analogy of that if you like.
Okay.
Don't get me started on the flat earth theory, but
I said I wasn't talking about it. Okay.
Well, what we can do is we can look at the round earth theory, the globe, and you know, did we actually go to the moon? Well, again, you've got that film editing that would indicate, you know, there's no shadows or the shadows are in the wrong direction.
No, two light sources.
You know, and there's no stars visible.
No stars?
You know,
at all?
But what they do is NASA gave explanations that were largely accepted.
No, they weren't accepted.
Largely, people will accept whatever they're given.
Whatever they're spoon fed.
People are spoon feeding them because that's the kind of people we've kind of become.
Don't get me started.
But the other issue is the actual globe Earth pictures. If you look at them, if you put the ones that exist, there's not two of them. Not two of them the same. They're all different. The land masses are different. The colours are different. And in fact, I actually know this because it's on video, and we may be able to show this.
Yes, well.
The actual guy who was asked to create the official picture that would be put out as the globe round Earth, he himself said, I had to create that out of low satellite photographs. And you can clearly see that on some of the round Earth pictures, that you can actually see where it's been photoshopped, and you can actually see where it's been duplicated. You've got cloud formations over here, and some over there that are exactly the same, they just copied and pasted.
Yeah, that just would look a little bit more beautiful. Let me add a cloud.
So is there actually a photograph taken of the Earth from 20,000 miles away that makes it look like a marble? No.
Well, you know what I like. What I love is the so-called live feeds from that satellite that's up there, right? You know, like every so often they'll put a live feed out on social media, right? And they go, oh, this is from the space station, right? And then you know you got people in the chat room going, turn the camera around, so I can see the Earth. And it's like, hey man, we're just repairing batteries out here. But you know, it's like they never actually give you what they say is a live version, because when they cut to something of where the Earth's supposed to be, who's to say that's not an image? Who's to say that's not digital?
I've never seen.
We're not in NASA. We don't know.
With all of our technology today, I've never seen a live broadcast from any. In fact, they're not far enough out in space, if they're out in space, to actually
in Earth orbit.
Actually, to be able to get a marble picture anyway. So you know why is it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could just totally kill the whole flat Earth theory just by, you have the technology, just do it. You know, and I mean, a lot of times when people, you know, so-called halo jump, or, you know, they like send like chips up, the point is that they never actually capture it. I mean, I would love to actually see what the planet supposedly does look like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we've only seen the replications of what it's supposed to look like, that they want you to believe that it looks like. I gotta tell you, Dimple, you know, I mean, this has been an interesting swim. I still believe, I mean, hopefully, I'm not gonna say that because that could get me killed. But, you know, presidents dying, that's a shame. Assassination. That's a shame, right?
Yeah, I mean, just on that, I mean, you know, when somebody who believes they want to try and help change the world and they try to do it through the political spheres that we have, I do believe that their attempts are genuine and they do want to go into, you know, these positions and change the world. But unfortunately, there seems to be other people who have other agendas, and the minute you go against what they want on the agenda, well, it seems you're no longer around to do what you want.
Exactly. Well, you know what? Like I said, you know, I mean, this has been another interesting, you know, episode where we'll start to actually provide more like video component to what we're talking about as well. But also, just want to encourage you out there is that, you know, Paul Gunson still will be with me here on Don't Get Me Started, but hopefully we will be starting his new show, The Arc. And it's like, because I think, and I gotta tell you, I'm one of those like, well, you know how I am, but you know, when somebody talks about this, we always talk about in the past how things have so-called changed, and then they became the norm. And so, you know, having a show that kind of like is looking at this change, this flood that is coming, I just think is an interesting look. And then, you know, so hopefully you follow, you know, Paul Gunson's show, The Arc, as he just only, you know, provided information about that flood coming, you know. So let's join you on The Arc, shall we, my friend? And so I just want to thank you very much for joining me here on Don't Get Me Started. That's Paul Gunson. I'm Chase, the hijacker. Never like to give out my last name, but you know what it is. But still, don't get me started.